All right, so for some reason I was feeling oddly productive today, so um, I had the energy and the desire to finally record this. I'm going to be talking about my experience and my opinions on this Metroidvania that I played on stream last month before the Crawl tournament called Afterimage. So what is Afterimage? As I already said, it's a Metroidvania, very lengthy one, and yeah, I'm not gonna throw out the end opinion that I'm gonna get to. I do not think that it's a particularly great game, and I do not think that it's worth your time for the reasons that I'm going to elaborate on throughout the course of this video. Um, I think this is a game for people with hundreds of hours of Metroidvania time. This is definitely not the kind of game that a newcomer to the genre should jump into, unless they feel like pretty much being handheld by a walkthrough um, or a let's play. Because yeah, if they go in with no genre experience, it's gonna be a supremely painful experience. And I know that because I have played a lot of Metroidvanias and I still have to look up a lot of stuff, like more stuff than I would consider acceptable. So, one of my greatest issues with the game was that it's too horizontal. For a game with a massive map, which this game has an insanely large map, it has such a large map that I got almost all endings before I found a massive area in the game, which was the columns. Yeah, of course, this is a review with a little bit of spoilers. I mean, I don't think that naming an area that I didn't find until, well, that I didn't really explore until the end game is counts as much of as a spoiler. But anyway, the fact that I got almost all endings without going through that area, I just feel like this game had a lot of stuff that was like bloat. Yeah, I think that's the better way to put it. Bloat. If there's anything that I've learned from all my time playing Crawl, is that like and more than playing Crawl, understanding Crawl's design philosophy is that like I feel like it's a design philosophy that can even apply to games that are not roguelikes better than it can apply to a roguelike. Um, Kroll's design philosophy is quite a departure from the philosophy of games like NetHack, for example, where if you can think of any ridiculous thing, it is probably in the game. But in Kroll, it's almost a complete opposite, and I feel like cutting stuff for the sake of um, elegance and I don't know how to put it in English, but you know, a compact format um, that does very few, but whatever little it does great. I don't think it's that fantastic on a roguelike the way that it is done in Crawl. I think it works perfectly for a game like Rift Wizard, but that's not something that I'm gonna get into because it's a review of Afterimage. I'm only mentioning it because that philosophy works very well on a Metroidvania. Because Afterimage is the example of not doing that. The game is way too large, not interesting enough to be worth the size. Um, and it's just it has a bunch of elements that they just didn't vibe with me. Like for example, leveling up. So let's say I have it took me like 30 plus hours to finish the game, like all endings, I think. All endings that I could get, all the bosses that I could get. And there were some bosses that took me multiple hours to beat, and I enjoyed that process. And there were also bosses that looked like they were gonna be really difficult, but because I was disgustingly over leveled by the time I found them, I wasn't able to enjoy them the way that I enjoyed some bosses prior. For example, Balo and the Frost guy, the Frost Sword guy. Those bosses took me between 1 and 2 hours. The final boss of the worst ending, the Guider, took me about an hour. This was before I got the upgrade to the dash that gave iframes. Um, and so it was a very difficult fight, but once I figured it out, it was not so difficult. But I still had a great time with it because I enjoyed that kind of fight puzzle where it's up to me to figure out and to react and well, first figure out the plan and then execute the plan. Um, I think that's pretty cool, and I think it's an experience that was deprived um, of me. Like I was deprived of the experience because of the game's level up system where you just gain experience and you gain more power and you get better items, and so things that would have been difficult had you found them earlier are trivial if you find them later, which is super not cool. Come on. um so yeah, I think that the Castlevania Symphony of the Night system of leveling up and replacing gear is just something that I'm not fond of in Metroidvanias. And I would prefer it to be how you can see it in Tebi or Ravi Rivi, where you just have one weapon type, one, well, not really one weapon type, but more like one weapon, and you cannot find replacements to that weapon. Um, and like you can get extra moves for the weapon in Ravi Rivi as the game progresses and as you find upgrades in the floor, which is also true of Afterimage. In Afterimage, you can get upgrades or like more moves for your arsenal because Renee has like 6 different weapon types, and you can upgrade, you can unlock those through upgrading your um, what is this thing called, your skill tree. Which yeah, I am not fond of the skill tree, but I think that the most um, interesting part of the skill tree, like the most salvageable part of it, is that it unlocks new moves for every one of your weapon types, which is pretty cool. I think it could have been formatted in a better way to not bring such a low impact, otherwise a skill tree into existence. Um, but that's not how the game was done, and I am reviewing the game. So yeah, needless to say, I don't like the skill tree. I don't enjoy its existence, and I think that any game that could have a skill tree like the one in Afterimage is a game that um, could not have it, pretty much. Yeah. Let's compare it to another game that I beat recently that I'm also gonna make a video talking about, which is Nine Souls. Nine Souls also has like a skill tree, but it's so compact and tiny compared to Afterimages. And most importantly, the upgrades in Nine Souls as a skill tree actually are more tangible than the upgrades in Afterimage's skill tree. In Afterimage is like, oh, you deal plus zero point 0.5 more damage or something like that, or plus 0.5%, which is ridiculously low. Like it's why it feels like a bloat, which brings me back to a point that I was making earlier. This game is bloated. It's bloated in the skill tree. Like it feel like the skill tree is larger than it needs to be, um, just for the sake of, oh, look at how large it is. Which what is the point of that? And the map is also larger than it needs to be, just for the sake of saying, oh, look at how large it is. Um, Before playing this game, I used to think, oh yeah, large map is a pretty cool thing in a Metroidvania. But now I understand how a large map can be done poorly and can be a detriment to a game. My experience playing this game was so reminiscent of my experience uh, playing and or watching um, gameplay of open world games, because I feel like open world games are kind of bastardization of the Metroidvania, where it's just a bunch of empty space, super boring walking simulator. That's how I felt playing Afterimage. I felt, oh, it's a bunch of open space designed in such a way that it takes a lot of time traversing, and there's not really a lot of interesting things happening in between. Um, which yeah, I don't think is good at all. Um, so the weapon system at least has a little bit of spice, because you can do normal attacks, aka just pressing the button, and then follow that up with special weapon art. All weapons have different weapon arts that are applicable in different situations, or weapon skills. I think that's how the game calls them, weapon skills. So you can do normal attacks and then cancel a normal attack with a weapon art or with a weapon skill and do a little bit more damage with a little teeny tiny bit of execution requirements. I think that if that system had been polished more, yeah, like it could have been so cool. Like imagine weapon, like doing an attack with a weapon and then doing a weapon art and then changing to an attack with another weapon and doing another weapon art with the weapon. Like it could have been more interesting and more enjoyable and definitely more exciting. It was better than the Hollow Knight system of just pressing the button and doing the attack, or doing a charged attack. Um, but it was not incredible. Yeah, and I cannot help but feel like it was a lot of potential being left on the table when it comes to this game's combat system. Um, Now, when it comes to the magic, because somehow the game also has a magic system, but it's so sloppily implemented. Like you cannot use magic in the air. Magic being pretty much your only range option for quite a while. Um, the fact that you cannot use it in the air in a game where you are heavily rewarded for otherwise being in the air when attacking, um, it's like a staple of Metroidvanias that, or I guess I should say more a staple of Castlevania likes from the very first one, Symphony of the Night, and I mean the first one in the formula, because I know there were Castlevanias before, but they were drastically different. The one that I'm talking about is Symphony of the Night, of course. From the first one in the formula, you are so heavily rewarded by jumping and then pressing the attack button, because you can still move in the air while you're attacking. If you just press the attack button on the floor, you're gonna sit still for a little bit while you're throwing your attack, and that wrests control away from the player when they are attacking. Which, yeah, I mean, why would I submit myself to that when I can do the opposite and retain control when I'm attacking? Um, this game does that, but for magic, in the sense that I cannot throw magic in the air, and when I throw magic in the floor, I'm sitting still, which results in me pretty much just forgetting that magic is a thing in this game, which is terrible. Um, it there once again there was so much potential being left on the table for this game. I find it crazy, and I wonder if they had like no consultants with experience in the genre, because there's so many things that if you played the different Metroidvania with a magic system, you could spot and be like, hey, this doesn't feel good to play with. And I think that's like the most important thing for a game, that it feels good to do. If it doesn't feel good, players are gonna ignore it, and at that point, why are you even making it in the first place? And that is a point where magic is in this game. Um, it's extremely situational. The magic bar that you have recharges really slowly. If it's full in the end game, you can throw like three of the strongest spell, and then you have to wait a long time or use a mana potion for it to recharge. or build around magic, which I don't know if such a thing is even possible. I very much didn't bother with magic in this game. Um, as a part of it being a novelty or it killing things from afar when I needed it to. Um, but yeah, I think that what really kills it, as I've already said, is the fact that you cannot use it midair. It's crazy that you cannot use magic midair. Hmm. Let's see what else do I have in my notes. Ah, I think one of the worst parts about this game, one of the craziest parts too, is that the game has two doors that you find, and you're like, oh, surely these doors are going to open as I progress through the game. And then you do literally all endings, including the best ending, and you go back, and those doors do not open. Like, what are you doing? This door could have been a wall, and it wasn't a wall, and it's bloat for the sake of bloatiness. I think that is straight up inexcusable in a Metroidvania. Like, come on! If you go through the game and you discover all the secrets of the world, you should actually discover all the secrets of the world. No door should be left closed for a character that has gone through the entire game and has gotten all the endings. And there's two doors in this game that behave just like that. Maybe it's plans for a DLC, but if it's plans for a DLC, there's better ways to do it. There's better ways to do it than just have a door be there and remain closed forever. Unless the DLC actually releases. Come on. Um, the quests and the endings feel pretty random. This is something that I've heard from other people, but I also agree with the sentiment that like finding the NPCs is very difficult throughout the world because there's really no way for you to know where you're gonna encounter them next, which wouldn't be that much of a problem on a more compact game. But as I've already said plenty of times, this game's massive and it's not good that it's massive. The more you play, the more you notice the scale and how it plays against the game. Um, yeah, and because the quests and the endings being so random, you have a hard time completing all of those things without spoilers. There's one where you have to do a very specific action, and then you have to do another very specific action, and then you have to leave the place and then go back and then do something else, and that gets you an ending where if you like, it's a bunch of very specific things to do to not go into spoilers because for some reason people may want to do this without spoilers. Um, it's a lot of jank, let me tell you. Um, Now, when it comes to the minimap, and I feel the need to talk about this in detail, the minimap is a big part of a Metroidvania, and this map doesn't mark anything. You encounter so many red barriers that you cannot traverse until the very end game, or other obstacles and stuff. The game should auto mark those instead of you having to pause the game and add a marker every time you encounter something like that. Um, Not to mention the game should the minimap should, or rather, not the minimap, the map should update itself every time you break open a barricade. Like there should be a wall, and then when you break it, there should be no wall. The game doesn't do that, and I think that is a core feature. It would have saved me literal hours of gameplay if the game did those things, and it doesn't. So I am led to believe that the game just doesn't care about the player's time, which it's not a good thing, very bad thing. And this opinion that the game doesn't care about the player's time is better reflected in all of the game. Like it is not better reflected; it's just entirely reflected by the game itself. What do I mean by this? The map being too large and too devoid of interesting things to do, um, the quests being random as they are, the yeah, pretty much the map and the quests. Those are the huge things that you are in permanent interaction with from the moment you launch the game to the moment you close the game. And those things are, you could say, time wasters. It's insane. It's insane. Now, when it comes to the story, I've heard people say that the story was convoluted. I did not find it convoluted. I didn't need to look up for a lore video or anything to understand the story. But I do have to say that the story was very poorly told, whether it was because of translation limitations or different cultural norms when it comes to narration. Or what I think actually happened is poor execution when it comes to intertwining the story and the game. Um, it is not infrequent to walk into a flat arena. You can see it coming too, and get into a no dialogue boss fight. So you're just walking, you see the flat arena, you make sure that you're full power and you saved recently because this game has like a soul system where you have to go back to get your soul or to get your money and your experience. And then you get into a boss fight for no good reason, no dialogue. Um, why am I fighting all these beings? Why are all the arenas the same? Why couldn't the story be intertwined with the boss fights the way that um, most other games do it, like Nine Souls and stuff? Even the original Castlevania Symphony of the Night often features dialogue when it comes to boss fights. Not all of them, mind you, but most of them do. Um, and this game just doesn't have that, or like cool animations before you fight the boss. Like think Doppelganger in early Castlevania Symphony of the Night fight. You enter a room and the room has a cool animation, and then the doppelganger appears. And this one is just like, oh, you're walking and then you find the boss. Um, it's super whack. It's super whack. Um, as I've already said, why am I fighting all these beings? It's man, it's not good. It could have been good. That's the worst part. It could have been good. It was a lot of potential left on the table. I feel like if I had full control over the direction of a game like this with the bases that already exist in Afterimage, I could have produced a better work. And I don't have a lot of game design experience, but I feel like I could have produced a better work with the experience that I have, which is crazy. Um, there is a character that is pretty much your sidekick, which is kind of crazy that it doesn't appear in the official art that I have in this recording, which is called Ifri. Ifri is kind of like Renee, the main character's sidekick. Ifri is supposed to be a very powerful magician, fairy thing that's floating around you. But throughout the gameplay, we never see Ifri cast a single spell. Ifri straight up does not cast spells for us to help us in battle. It happens in cutscenes or in dialogue that Ifri casts a spell, and that's how we know that Ifri is a very powerful spellcaster. But what is the point of telling us Ifri is strong if we never see it in gameplay? Ifri is strong. Um, this is in contrast to Ribbon in Rabi Ribi or the Orbitals in Tebi, where they are heavily featured in gameplay. Heavily featured. This lets us know through gameplay these guys are pretty strong and they're pretty useful. Complete opposite of Ifri. Um, what else? What else is there to say about this game? I guess that um I'm done talking about it. Overall, I can't say that I recommend this because there's many games that I've played that do it better than this one, no matter what it is. Anything that this game does, there's another game that does it better, which kind of brings me back to my earlier point about refining your formula, not uh, not trying to do everything and I am resulting in it being a poor end product. Instead, just focusing on certain things and doing those things really well. Narration and atmosphere, I feel like Super Metroid does it better, which, yeah, keep in mind, that's one of the OGs. Graphics, Hollow Knight. This game was advertised as being beautifully hand drawn, and to be fair, it does have a lot of that, but it lacks so much personality that Hollow Knight does have. World building, Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight also does a great world building um, through its gameplay, through everything. The formula works wonderfully in Hollow Knight, and in this game it doesn't. Combat, Tevi. Tevi has the craziest, greatest combat in a Metroidvania. It's fantastic. It's so wild and it's so free and open, and there is many ways to get to the end result, and they're all super crazy. Um, it has so much in the way of creativity, uh, as this game has in the way of rigidity. There's pretty much only one thing that you can do, which is melee combat, and I guess you can replace your weapons and replace your weapon combinations, but it's still only melee combat. Exploration Rabbit Ribi. Why do I say this about Rabbit Ribi compared to Afterimage? Because in Rabbit Ribi you get markers. Here, hey, here's bosses that you can go to fight to progress the story, but you don't even have to pay attention to those. You can go anywhere in the world, pretty much, from almost the very beginning, and you can find bosses anywhere in the world, and those bosses count for game progression. You don't have to do those ones. You can do any bosses, and it works. Um, which, yeah, this game has nothing on that. Like I feel, as I've already said, this game just doesn't respect your time exploring because the areas are huge and because there's very little you can stumble upon that is cool when it comes to these areas. For customization, Tevi, this game has a huge skill tree, and the skill tree barely does anything to alter the gameplay other than unlocking the weapon attacks, which is the one cool thing the skill tree does. Everything else could have been done without. I mean, this game's not bad, but it's barely overcoming the good barrier. I think that I do not regret playing this game, but I feel slightly frustrated and very much disappointed by what it could have been. I did finish the game, so there is that. If it had been terrible, if it had been bad, I wouldn't have finished it. So at least it overcomes that barrier, but just barely. Um, It is not great, I can tell you that. It is not great, and there is a lot of great Metroidvanias that you can play before playing this. And that's my opinion on Afterimage. Go play Tevi instead, because that game is peak, and it barely gets any recognition. And thank you to my supporters on Patreon: Anthony, Dulo, Inon, Grapophilia, Fede Frog, Shaper, Merlin, Alistair, Neil, Mikhailo, Scott, Plotny, Blinkentile, Luis Kent, and Spartus. Thank you for your very generous contributions. They have kept me afloat in these difficult times, and they have allowed me to do this for quite a while now, so thank you for everything.